Hello and welcome into the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast, Week 2 Preview Edition. I got your host here, Carter Yates, talking with senior writer Mike Craven. And Craven, you will be at Texas State traveling to UTSA this weekend, and we're going to do a full preview of that game in the back half of this show. We're inviting Jared Kalmus from the Alamo Audible podcast and Kev Chardello from the Win Now or Get Bent podcast to have those two duke it out verbally spar before their teams duke it out on the field on Saturday. But we're going to recap all the other games and biggest storylines before then. So if you're a Texas State fan, UTSA fan, stay tuned for the back half of this show. I feel like there's one game we got to start off with, right, Craven?
Yeah, there's one big game at the P4 level this week and one big game at the G6 level this week for sure.
A nice little even split there. Love how that works out. And we're going to start off with Baylor traveling up to Dallas to go to play SMU. You can watch this game at 11 a.m. on the CW. SMU is favored by 3. And a moment of appreciation here for both the P4 and the G6 games. Intra-state, non-conference games within Texas. We got to love it, man. We're so blessed.
Yeah, regional rivalries are what made this sport so big and so passionate. SMU and Baylor were Southwest Conference rivals for a very long time. Texas State, UTSA, a newer rivalry. But kudos to them for playing these type of games. I think they matter more than if UTSA is playing Middle Tennessee State or Baylor's playing even in Auburn, right, which is a big game because of an SEC opponent. There's just something about the bragging rights and kind of the interstate stuff. And you know Baylor fans if you're an SMU grad and vice versa. I think that's the fabric of college football, and that's why we care about it so much.
And I'm calling this one the Keenan Hall Bowl because former SMU running back coach Keenan Hall was largely responsible for their recruiting surge a couple of years back in the state of Texas. And then he goes to Baylor, and now Baylor has been recruiting very well. And that's what makes this game so important is those recruiting battles within the state. And that's why so many non-conference games are going away that are between Texas teams because they don't want to risk giving the other program recruiting ammo, but Baylor and SMU putting on the line here. So I love that.
Yeah, it's a great point. These players have gone to visits at both schools and been recruited by both coaching staffs and played with or against a lot of these other players under Friday Night Lights or even just in the camp circuit on 7-on-7. So I think there's a interconnectedness that just doesn't happen if Baylor's playing Cal or SMU's playing Duke, and that makes it fun. That makes it more passionate. That makes it better. And so I'm excited to watch the game for sure.
I think my biggest question on the Baylor side of this is they'll prove to me this week if they are a mid-pack Big 12 team or if they're still a dark horse Big 12 championship contender, because they kind of got SEC'd by Auburn in terms of just leaned on in the running game. They lost the battles on both sides of the line of scrimmage. But ACC caliber football is more similar to Big 12 caliber football. And I think SMU is going to still be really good this year. Even if we disagree, I think they're going to go over. You think they're going to go under. They'd be a really solid Big 12 team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this is a better body matchup for Baylor. One of the cool things about my job is I get to go to all of these schools and watch practices and kind of see the players up close. And you go to Texas and Texas A&M, and the bodies just look different than at Baylor and SMU and TCU and Texas Tech. And then you go to UTSA, North Texas and Texas State. They look a little bit different than they did at Baylor and SMU and Texas Tech all down the line. SMU and Baylor are a lot more comparable in terms of what their offensive lines and defensive lines look like. And so it'll be a better test, a better parameter of what this Baylor defensive line and run defense is. The problem is SMU is a pretty good running the ball football team, and Baylor in a lot of ways, it was the quarterback run that killed them. Kevin Jennings can run the ball. I'm curious what the adjustments will be from Dave Aranda.
Especially because Jackie Marshall, their best defensive lineman, could be out for this game too. He's day-to-day. And they don't really know, or at least Dave Aranda wouldn't say, who's stepping in to help replace him.
Yeah, Cooper Lands will kind of move out, I would imagine. Because if you go back and watch that Baylor-Auburn game, Baylor never left the cover 2 shell. Like they just kind of stayed deep. We're really worried about Cam Coleman and Singleton. You could tell that the passing game and the secondary was the major concern. I wonder if they keep that the same, like if they're that worried about their secondary that they're going to allow the run game to happen underneath them, or if they sell out to stop the run. And then maybe we see SMU have success through the passing game in a way Auburn didn't even have to really have. And so to me, what does Dave Aranda do defensively different in week 2? How many adjustments can you make in 1 week? Are you just stuck with who you have? And this is the kind of defense that you're going to have. It's just, to me, it's so concerning for Baylor that this is the side of the ball that we're worried about. And I just get the feeling that it's going to be a constant talking point for the rest of the season.
Yeah, because you wrote about it in your 10 things from week 1 of the college football season up at texasfootball.com right now. For the last 5 years, Baylor's defense has finished within the bottom half of the FBS. And the 4 of the last 5 years when Dave Aranda is the head coach. So not a great trend.
Yeah, not a great trend. They've given up nearly 27 points a game over the 5 years that he's been a head coach. And that's mixed in with a top 10 defense in 2021. Like in 2021, Baylor's defense was really good. Jalen Petrie, Terrell Bernard. They had a big nose tackle that could take up some blocks and allow the linebackers and safeties to go play free. They just haven't been able to replicate that. They've gone through a few defensive coordinators in this tenure, and now he is the defensive coordinator. They did take a step forward last year, but not into greatness. They just took a step into competent, maybe. I mean, they were still like 81st in the nation in scoring defense. So the offense is going to have to outscore teams. The good news for Baylor is the SMU defense is also where the question marks are for the Mustangs. I think we know a little bit more about the offense, although Jordan Hudson's injury, I don't think he plays against Baylor the way the coaching staff is talking. The x-rays were negative, which is good for long-term diagnosis, but I'm not sure that he's going to play this week. So there's going to be some young wide receivers for SMU alongside Romello Brinson, but RJ Maryland's still there. I don't know if SMU can run the ball the way Auburn did, if it's not for Kevin Jennings, just because nobody's stepped up yet at SMU. They have like a stable.
Yes, they have a stable. And the argument I've seen thrown out from the Baylor universe is that Jackson Arnold was, if he saw a certain coverage, he was running. But Kevin Jennings scrambles to throw. So that for that reason, the quarterback run might not hurt them as much. I would still argue I'm very nervous about Kevin Jennings' legs. Even more so if he's looking to throw.
Yeah, I mean, and we saw last year, that SMU team is fine with running the ball 40 times a game. Like if they touch a nerve and think that they can exploit a situation, like, I don't think Lashley is as married to the pass game. Remember, he's a Gus Malzahn guy, right? Like that's where he came from. So maybe this is a breakout game for a Derek McFall or a TJ Harden or Chris Johnson Jr. that they snagged out of the transfer portal. I think SMU has talent in the backfield. I just don't know who RB1 is. Maybe at the end of the game on Saturday, we have a better idea of who RB1 is. Because if you're the Ponies, I mean, your game plan has to be run the football until Baylor can prove that they can stop it.
Yeah, especially because on the outside receivers, Jordan Hudson's probably not going to play. RJ Maryland, I was listening to Lashley's press conference today, and he talked about what a pro's pro RJ Maryland is, how he's attacked his rehab, but it was a significant injury. He's probably still like 85% right now. So that SMU passing game is going to be down. Jordan Hudson having 85%, RJ Maryland. Are you leaning over in this game because of the offenses? I'm trying to think of you leaning over or under.
Usually as a bettor, I tend to try to underreact to the overreactions. Like for 6 to 7 months, you sit there and you study every team and you have all these talking points and the podcasts happen and the stories happen. And then one game, one sample size, and we typically throw it all out, and we just overreact. Like Arch Manning sucks, right? Like Baylor can't stop a cold. Let's see. I think Baylor's defense is better than what we saw against Auburn, and I don't think they're going to see the type of physicality and size that they didn't handle well against Auburn. So let's see what they are against Baylor. I think SMU's defense is pretty good, at least, especially the secondary. So can Baylor have that same type of success through the air that they had against Auburn. I have the feeling that the adjustments will happen. This game will be tighter and lower scoring. But I mean, both of these offenses are really good. So it could be a track meet. I just think the over and under, the line is going to be so high and the reactions are going to be so much of Baylor's defense sucks. And I think we still have this reputation of SMU, of them being what SMU was for most of our lifetimes, which was high scoring, can't play a defense. I don't think that's true. I think both of these offenses, struggle on occasion, and we see a week 2 slugfest a little bit.
I could see both offenses having the same strategy too, of trying to ground and pound and run the ball, because SMU's defensive line is almost all new, and Alexander Kilgore is not going to be 100% if he even plays, and that's their best linebacker.
Yeah, the over and under right now is 65.5, and SMU is -3. So that's a 34-31, predictive score. I mean, that could easily happen. I just don't know if it is, because the other side of it is, do the offenses help out the defenses? Right? It does Baylor try to run the ball a little bit more? Caden Knight and Bryson Washington kind of lean, go forward, see if you can keep your defense off the field more. Maybe SMU has a similar, track, because they're going to want to run the ball against a defense that didn't stop it last week. So maybe this is more of a ground and pound game by both teams to see which defense can stop it. And it ends up being kind of 28-25 somewhere in there.
Another trend I want to watch is Baylor going for it on 4th down, because right now, if you take the teams out that have played 2 games, Baylor was 2nd in the nation in 4th down attempts with 6 against Auburn. Dave Aranda's going for it like a man who's had 9 cups of coffee. Like he's getting crazy out there.
It's the most fascinating part of the Dave Aranda tenure to me, is he's done 180s on so many different things. Like in 2020, he was getting massacred for being so conservative and not going for any 4th downs. And then he's completely gone the other way. He hated the transfer portal and didn't want to use it. And now he's gone the other way. They didn't want to use NIL. They didn't want it to be a transactional program. Then they started wearing "We Pay Players" shirts, right? Like he has shown the ability to adjust and do a 180. I guess my biggest question for Baylor is, did what we saw against Auburn, was that an Auburn thing? Was that a Baylor thing? And if it was a Baylor thing, is it even possible to fix it? Is it schematic? Is it as simple as Baylor was playing a cover 2 shell? They were worried about the wide receivers without Carl Williams, with kind of questionable cornerbacks. They just didn't want to give up the big play, and they figured they could score with Auburn enough if it was just the run game. Because that's still a 1-week scheme, a 1-week game plan that will be changed. Or is that just how Baylor's going to play defense? I don't know. And we're going to find out more in week 2 based on what they do against SMU. I'm lower on Baylor, obviously, than I was going into the season because of this defense. And the Auburn game only reinforced that worry.
Mm-hmm. Really fascinating game this week. Yeah. I mean, one of the most interesting ones out there, if not the most interesting one. But that and the Texas State UTSA game are both marquee matchups, in my opinion. Let's talk some quarterback news in the state of Texas. Let's start with Arch Manning. Arch Manning. Craven, what have you thought about the last 2 days? We've had time to sleep on Arch Manning's performance. We've seen how he's handled the media. What are your thoughts on where Texas goes from here?
I think we have to recalibrate what this team is going to look like. Maybe we don't have to recalibrate what our expectations for this team are. I think Texas can still win the SEC. I think Texas could still win the national championship. They have an elite unit in that defense. And a lot of times having a singular elite unit is enough if the other side of the ball can just be competent. But I assumed Texas's offense was going to be more explosive than the one we had seen with Quinn Ewers. I thought the advantage Arch Manning would provide was the verticality and the downfield passing game and the exotic routes and just the stuff that you can typically do with a quarterback with a stronger arm and just more confidence in pushing the ball down the field. I'm not sure that's what Texas's offense can be based on what we saw with Arch Manning, at least not in the games that are going to matter. Maybe against UTEP, San Jose State, Sam Houston, Mississippi State, like those kind of games, sure. Arch Manning is going to have the highlights and he's going to be fixed and we'll write glowingly about it. But at Florida, against Oklahoma, at Georgia, I think Texas is going to play in a phone booth. I think they're going to have to run the football. I think they're going to have to pound the rock. I think they're going to have to keep it low scoring, and they're going to have to figure out a way to execute in the red zone and to win those kind of tight, low scoring games against equal competition. I just think that's what the recipe is going to have to be for Texas.
You know how you said earlier you underreact to overreactions?
Mm-hmm.
I think I overreact the other way to overreactions because I've watched the tape, Craven. I looked at Chase Daniels' breakdown, and I got to tell you, I'm buying Arch Manning stock hand over fist now. I'm all the way back in after watching the tape. Look, the game was not good. Okay. The lights were bright. It was a really tough ask against the defending national champion in the horseshoe. But I watched throws that Manning made in the second half that have me all the way back in. The deep out to Livingstone on the opposite hash, one of the first, okay, that was a nice throw. Watching that on tape, that was a big boy throw. The Livingstone ball on the broken up touchdown was a dime. The Ryan Wingo post seam where he looks off the safety, then fits it in a tight window. That was a professional caliber throw. Livingstone touchdown again was awesome. The wheel to Endress was unbelievable. And Chase Daniel was like, there are NFL guys who can't make that throw. So there are glimpses where it's like, that's the guy who Steve Sarkisian had so much confidence in. That's the guy who we all thought he could be. And it makes me feel better that for how bad the game was, that he still gutted it out at the end of the game, started throwing dimes, being fearless, and they had a chance to win that game despite how horrible the first half was. If not for his missed ball and the Ryan Wingo across the field pattern, that could have been a touchdown, and we're going to overtime in a game where Texas, someone was saying, pooped down their pants on the horseshoe. I don't know, man. I feel like if he can't play worse than that, and the worst game you ever get from Arch Manning is 14-7 against probably now the number one team in the nation, I think I'm back.
It's not the high-end throws that I worry about. It's the consistency snap in, snap out. Because you're right. I mean, he clearly can make some throws. That's why I thought that this offense would look explosive and vertical, and Ryan Wingo would be running seam routes, and they would get down the field more. And maybe it was just Matt Patricia is really good at this, confused the hell out of Arch Manning. Ohio State had just played Texas, and it looked like they knew exactly what Texas was going to run before Arch knew what Texas was going to run. So maybe this is about Ohio State. Maybe it's about Matt Patricia, and we look back in 2 or 3 months and go, Arch Manning just had one of those kind of, pie in the sky, just it overwhelmed him. He, the talent, the scheme, the atmosphere, and he's better for it. But some of the throws that were missed are more alarming to me than the exciting throws were good. And until he can consistently just hit open guys in stride with the right timing, again, I'm not worried about it the next 3 weeks. I'm worried about it in those 3 kind of high leverage games that Texas is going to have to at least win 2 out of 3 to get into the playoffs.
I do like how he's handled the media since that game, where he comes out and he's like, wasn't good enough. He comes back after watching the film and says, not a whole lot to like there. I know people might be listening to this and say, hey, that's like bare minimum stuff you should be doing as the quarterback. But at the same time, Arch could hang his hat on those elite level throws he made, and he's not. He's basically like the game was a D minus an F.
I guess when I was watching the Ohio State game, and this could be not fair. I need to say that before. When I was watching the Ohio State game, my immediate thought was, oh, that second half against Georgia wasn't a fluke thing. That's just who he is, right? Like, he's just not there yet. And I think a lot of us, myself included, thought he would hit the ground running. That maybe he wouldn't be the Heisman Trophy winner. And, you got to grow. We've seen Nussmeier and Klubnik. I mean, like, quarterback is a developmental position, and he hasn't had the real game snaps yet to develop into an elite star. And maybe he will by the end of this football season. I guess I thought that Arch Manning would be one of the reasons why Texas won the SEC and the national championship. I'm starting to come around to the idea that he's not going to be a reason why. Like, he may be one of the pieces that wins those things, but it won't be because Arch Manning throws you to those wins. It's going to have to be low scoring, execute in the small margins, win 17-12 in a way like Georgia's offense has for most of this regime, right? Or Alabama used to before they went to Lane Kiffin and started scoring 40 or 50 points a game. Like, I just think it's going to be a conservative defensive team that runs the football a lot. And maybe as the season goes on, Sark's confidence, because that's the other part. Like, I don't need to have confidence in Arch Manning. Steve Sarkisian does, and it didn't feel like he did on Saturday.
He had the training wheels on, and that was my one devil's advocate to my I'm all the way back in on Arch Manning take, is why Steve Sarkisian, if you've had this guy on campus for now his third year, and he's really a 5-star number 1 overall player, why are you rolling in with him in a must-win? I mean, you can argue whether it's must-win, but a big-time marquee game with the training wheels on.
Yeah.
That scares me.
With 8 months to prepare for it.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
So I think you have kept your similar take from Sunday when we recorded. I have now I think no one ever accused me of being the most level-headed guy. I have swung all the way to I'm back in.
That's the more fun way to approach college football, by the way. I need to take a lesson from it. I guess it would be easier for me to write off the Ohio State performance if he never had to go back into that kind of atmosphere again. If we could be like, that's the toughest place he's going to play. That's the best defenses he's going to play. Everything is less than that. But I don't think that's true. I think Georgia's defense is just as good, and playing in Athens is just as hard. I think the Swamp is going to be a tough place to play, especially if Lagway is healthy, because you know that Florida trusts his arm. And then Oklahoma, say what you want about the Sooners, but Venerables is a really good defense. It looks like they found a quarterback in Mateer. Like, he's got to do this 3 more times against really good teams with a lot of talent. And you're not going to win the way that they won on Saturday.
To me, watching the game, though, it felt like he was nervous big time. I mean, who wouldn't be?
Sure.
He was skipping throws. His fundamentals weren't locked in. And I almost think this could be a blessing in disguise, in the sense of, okay, now you know what happens when you go out and throw up a dud, and you got all the Arch Manning hate out of the way, and you realize, hey, brother, it's not that scary. I mean, yes, people are going to make memes of you where it's like you're Shane Gillis in a Texas jersey, and this is what you looked like on Saturday, but you go out to dinner with your parents, you chill with your brother on Sunday, you stay off your phone, you realize the sky isn't falling, and now, okay, we got that out of the system. We can go play now the rest of the games.
Yeah, not to get too personal or vulnerable on this podcast, but like, especially early in my career, I struggled with imposter syndrome a lot. I didn't go to school for journalism and all this kind of stuff. I kind of just backed my way into this career. And I remember talking to a friend of mine who happens to be a psychiatrist, and she kind of, one of the things that they kind of recommend to people who have that is like, go fail. Like purposely fail in a moment that you would find embarrassing, just so you can find out that it's not the end of the world, that it's not that big of a deal, that you can walk through that fire, that you can make a mistake in an article or say the wrong name on a podcast or look nervous on television, and you'll wake up the next day. Nobody else will care. Nobody else will notice. It's like in golf, the 2 toughest shots are the tee shot on 1 and the tee shot on 9, because people are watching. But you should remember what you do when other people are hitting on 1 and 9, and that's not pay attention because you're worried about yourself, and you need to think that other people are doing that. So maybe you're right. Maybe this is as bad as it gets for Arch Manning. He walked through the fire. He dealt with the memes. He dealt with the media, and he's better for it. I think that will be true eventually. I'm just not sure it'll be true by October 4th at the Swamp or October 11th in Red River. And if it's not, Texas has to find a different way to win than I thought they would going into the season.
All right, let's get to another quarterback conversation. This one surrounding injury. It's Texas Tech quarterback Baron Morton. So ESPN reported Morton is day-to-day with muscle soreness in that lower right leg. I think Saturday against Arkansas Pine Bluff was the perfect microcosm of the Baron Morton experience. He is 16 for 20. He throws 4 touchdowns. he looks amazing, and then he gets hurt. And look, that was a nasty hit. Like, so that was not like him being fragile or whatever, but this has been an ongoing conversation throughout his career.
Yeah, it's not a toughness thing. It's just a happenstance thing. Some people's bodies just, break a little bit more than others do. It doesn't feel like anything structural. I've heard that x-rays were negative and that it's just day to day. If I was a betting man, I don't think he plays against Kent State. He may not even play against Oregon State. You just need him September 20th against Utah. But I checked with some people at Tech this morning, still day to day. They're just going to see how he can tolerate the pain and what the swelling looks like at the end of the week. But Kent State's such a bad team, and you have confidence in that backup quarterback. And Baron Morton is experienced enough to where I think you can give him a rest for a couple of weeks and make sure he's good to go by Utah, because you need Baron Morton to win the Big 12 championship. And those are still the goals for the Red Raiders. And until Big 12 play happens, I just don't think it's worth the risk to put him back out there.
Is this a concern you're going to have throughout the season, though, with Baron Morton? If you think Texas Tech can only win the Big 12 with Baron Morton, how concerning is this for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was concerned going into the season because of this, right? I mean, because Morton has historically had some bumps and bruises and not been able to play every single game and had to have left some games and just always had the shoulder thing lingering over his head. So I think health is the main deal. I think Hammond can win you a game or two. I'm not sure he can go to Utah or go to Arizona State or go to Kansas State and win 3 out of those. And that's what Texas Tech's probably going to need to make it to Arlington.
And are you worried if Baron Morton misses 2 games and then comes back on September 20th that he would be rusty? Or are you like, look, he's a 5th-year player. He missed all of spring ball and dealed on Saturday. It's okay.
I'll take a close to 100% but slightly rusty Baron Morton rather than been playing for the last 2 weeks and is still 60% because he hasn't had the time to heal. Yeah. An ideal world, you'd have both. A healthy Baron Morton that had played the last 2 weeks, but you're not going to get that. The reality we're living in is that he's banged up. And I would, because of the 5th-year senior and how much he's played and how much he knows this offense, I would give him the time to get healthy at the risk of being a little bit out of rhythm early against Utah.
All right, let's fly through the rest of the state's slate. Again, guys, we're going to have Kef and Jared on the show coming up in the back half to discuss all things Texas State versus UTSA. Let's start off with Texas versus San Jose State at 11 a.m. on ABC. Texas is favored by 36.5 points.
Yeah, just want to see what Arch Manning looks like, see some of those balls, see if he has better footwork. I think that's just a check-in on Arch Manning's stat box type of day.
Yeah, a cathartic game. Like that.
A get-right game for sure.
Yes. And then Texas A&M faces Utah State, 11:45 a.m. on SEC Network. A&M is favored by 29.5 in a tune-up game for Notre Dame next week.
Yeah, Utah State beat UTEP in week 1. Bronco Mendenhall, for my money, is one of the 10 pound-for-pound best coaches in the country. A&M's run defense is what I'm watching here. Kind of the run-to-pass ratio, if it still looks like it did last week where Marcel Reed threw the ball 34 times, if it becomes a little bit more 50-50, and then also if the Aggies, run defense has been, gotten into shape after a week 1 scare where they were pretty bad.
All right, TCU faces Abilene Christian, 7 p.m. on ESPN+. There's no line for this one. Craven, has your expectation for TCU changed based on the absolute thrashing of North Carolina on Monday night?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that for 24 hours. And they don't play Abilene Christian until week 3. They have a random weird early bye week here.
Oh, sorry.
But I'm still not convinced I think last night was more about North Carolina than TCU. I am very encouraged by Kavorian Barnes' health because we've talked all offseason. If the Horned Frogs can run the ball, they can win the Big 12. And it looks like they can run the ball. However, I'm not sure I've ever seen a Power 4 team tackle that bad. Are they going to play another defense that stinks that much? I'm not sure they will. And so I'm kind of a wait and see pattern with TCU. I want to see that SMU game before I make any declarative statements.
Although those offensive linemen were moving dudes 5 yards, 6 yards down the field.
Yeah. Yeah, TCU had one of the top performances in week 1. They did what they were supposed to do. They went out and dominated a team that they were better than. They haven't always done that. Stanford last year, for example.
Or Colorado. This was kind of the same thing as Colorado from 2 years ago, where they failed spectacularly in Deion Sanders' first game. And this was the same type deal with Bill Belichick, literally cutting a WWE promo as he walked out on the field in the cutoff sleeves with the 2 cops behind him in the smoke. Like, that actually, I thought TCU was going to win that game, and that WWE promo, I was like, oh, I think North Carolina's going to take this. And then the first drive was insane, and they're showing Michael Jordan and Jordan Hudson, and Roy Williams is there. And after that, it was, oof.
All TCU.
Brutal. Okay, let's keep it moving now. In the Big 12, Houston travels to Rice for the Bayou Bucket, 6 p.m. on ESPN+. Houston is favored by 12.5 points.
Last scheduled Bayou Bucket, Houston, shame on you. Rice with the big win last week against Louisiana. You kind of listen to the national podcast and you're like, Scott Abel's offense, and it was not Scott Abel's offense, right? They were shut out in 3 out of the 4 quarters. They scored 14 points and won that football game. John Kay's defense was really good. Interested to see what the Rice offense looks like against a Houston defense that's just going to be bigger, stronger, faster. I think it's going to be a long day for the Owls. I'm glad they got their week 1 win. And week 3 and week 4 winnable football games. This one just probably isn't. On the Houston side, just kind of what Connor Wigman is. You know, like Rice's defense, I think, is good, better than SFA's defense for sure. So this will be a little bit of a ramp up for that offense just to see what the Cougs look like.
This game screams 9-3 deep into the third quarter.
Yeah, it could be ugly. This will not be a very pretty football game, most likely.
All right, North Texas at Western Michigan, 2:30 p.m. on ESPN+. North Texas is favored by 9.5. Is this a sneaky good game, Craven?
Shout out to the Mean Green being favored by 10 points basically on the road. You know, that doesn't
Michigan's not an easy trip.
You know, we've wondered for 2 years what North Texas would look like with a competent defense, and it turns out very good. They looked really good. It's Lamar. You know, let's pump the brakes on, you know, them being like an AAC favorite right now. But the complementary football looked great. We know the offense is going to score a lot of points if the defense can be competent. The Mean Green are a dangerous team. And Drew Mestamaker, as we talked about on the recap show, every time I've watched him play, the last 2 games, I guess they've played, it just blows my mind that he wasn't a starter in high school. Like it just, he looks like he's been playing the quarterback position for the last 5 years or whatever. And I know he, you know, practiced at it and stuff like that, but been really good. Was fun to watch. And I think North Texas, if not for TCU's dominant win over North Carolina, I think North Texas would be my answer in terms of which team impressed you the most in week 1.
All right, let's take it over to Conference USA. It is UTEP versus UT Martin, 8 p.m. on ESPN+. There's no line for this one. I think this is a must-win, not only for the season, but for Scotty Walden's tenure. Because you cannot have a repeat of the FCS loss to Southern Utah last year on the home opener.
No, the biggest challenge for a UTEP head coach outside of recruiting to that location is getting the city to buy in. Losing at home for a second straight season to an FCS program would have the whole of El Paso checking out. And you can't have that this early in the tenure. I know it sounds dumb, but this is a must-win game for the Miners. They have to win this football game.
Also interesting, I was looking at the stats, and former Sam Houston quarterback Jace Bauer and running back John Gentry are both at UT Martin right now. So UTEP's got some film on these guys.
That's right. Expect a low-scoring game based on that information.
Smashing the under. All right. Speaking of Sam Houston travels to Hawaii, the Aloha State, at 10:59 p.m. on the Mountain West app. Hawaii is favored by 7.5 points.
How much of this game are you going to be able to stay up to watch?
0.
I don't think I'm going to make it either. This will be a rewatch.
I don't have the Mountain West app.
This will be that's true. This will be a rewatch on Sunday morning when I wake up type of deal. But it's like we were talking about with UTEP, there are not many we can win this football games on the schedule for Sam Houston this year. At Hawaii is one of those that they could absolutely go win. Feels like an important road trip for Phil Longo's squad. Because if not, I think everything just starts getting punted to 2026.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will be in Norman this weekend. Actually, my fiance is a Oklahoma grad, so a bunch of people from Oklahoma are going to the Michigan game. And if I am tuned into the Mountain West app watching Sam Houston, Hawaii, and on the one trip we've made to Norman, she's not going to be very happy with me.
Well,
so I'm going to catch the next day.
That shows your priorities, Carter, which are probably good priorities to have.
All right, that's going to do it for our week preview for all the games except for Texas State UTSA. Now let's welcome on Jared Kalmus and Kef Chardello for a spicy debate about Texas State UTSA coming up right now. We got a packed house in here. Of course, senior writer Mike Craven's here. I'm your host, Carter Yates, but we are joined by two very special guests. It's Jared Kalmus with the Alabama Audible representing UTSA, and it's Kef Chardello with the Win Now or Get Bent podcast representing Texas State. And we're going to have a friendly debate here, or maybe a not so friendly. We shall see about this upcoming rivalry game, Texas State versus UTSA. I really don't know who to start with here because I can either start with the home team and Jared and UTSA, or we could do make it, take it, and winner takes ball with Kef because Texas State won this one last year 49-3.
Yeah,
Craig, what do you think?
I think the winner takes it. It's like basketball rules, right?
I do think winner takes it.
That's very gentlemanly of you.
I like it. I'm at the top of the key, I guess. It's another chapter in what is the best G5 rivalry in college football. I feel a lot of people feel that. GJ Kinney said that earlier today. So I think a lot of people are really excited. It's nice that Texas State is actually back in it. 0-5 was pretty bad. I imagine 0-6 would have been really bad. But I think the most exciting part is it's round 3 of GJ versus Traylor. 1-1 each. It's kind of a rubber match, if you will. Who knows how long they'll be there, as we all know that they used to be together at Gilmer High School and all that. So I think that's like the real exciting narrative with it all. But I mean, we know it's going to be rowdy and raucous at the Alamo Dome. So I'm fired up, Jared. I'm not going to be too mean. You know, I'm a gracious winner over here. So I feel like I'm going to be humble. I'm going to be very gracious for.
And he also knows that UTSA is 29-3 to the Alamo Dome, so being very gracious.
Yeah, and I'm a terrible smack talker. I've said for years I outgrew rivalries. Like when I was young, I used to get super fired up. Like in college, I had a selfie taken in a very dirty bathroom mirror with a Beat Texas State shirt on. That was my profile picture. And then I grew up, right? So I root for the Bobcats to do well when they're not playing UTSA. I think same as the rest of you guys. I want Texas football to look great everywhere. I want us to beat every out-of-state school, and I would love to beat Texas State when they're the Sun Belt champion, right? They haven't done that yet. Maybe this would be the year. There's my first jab at
God, what a backhanded. Oh, I hope you win this year.
But no, in all seriousness, this game is just so great for the state. You know, the power programs always have the spotlight of the rivalries, and I don't think a lot of people realize how intense and how passionate, how heated some of these group of 6 rivalries can be. And if you've ever been to one of these games, you've seen it firsthand, the passion is there. So it's really exciting. And now to see both programs in a pretty good state, with great coaches and a lot of talent, it just takes it to another level. Just like GJ said today, it's a shame it's not on an ESPN broadcast or something. So hopefully that changes in the future.
You see, there was another subtle one in there. I heard it. The G6. You know, I've been seeing. I saw my guy Mike Craven tweet something about it earlier.
Are we going to derail this podcast on what it's the Pac-12 G6?
No. We got to talk about. All right, currently there are 5, so it's G5. But I know when you guys say G6, we know what you're doing. We know what you do. You're implying next year when the Pac-12 is a conference or it's back or whatever, that it is in the G6. And well, we can debate that, especially once you see what the media rights deal is. I imagine it's nowhere near these power conferences, but I see what you're doing. I'm just clocking it. That's all I'm saying. I see the G6, technically still a G5 and a P4 and whatever Oregon State and Washington State are right now, technically kind of in the Mountain West or whatever that is, but I see it. I'm just clocking it. That's all.
The Pac-12 will be a G5, then G6 program. It's my show. We're ending it right there. We're staying on UTSA, Texas State. We're just going to agree to disagree on that one. Speaking of things that GJ Kinney talked about today, a lot of UTSA fans for years, kind of their main jab towards Texas State is this wasn't really a rivalry. The other team has to win one first. Kenny kind of said the same thing today, that it wasn't much of a rivalry, that it wasn't much of a series until last year. I'm curious for both of you, how much does it feel like this has ratcheted it up now that Texas State has proven that they can field a football team that can not only beat UTSA, but can throttle and embarrass UTSA?
Yeah, I'll go first on that one. There was a stark difference in Jeff Traylor's media availability today compared to the lead up last season. He was kind of like just focusing on his relationship with GJ and how excited he was for him to get the chance to, excel at the FBS level. And it was kind of like, buddy, like just happy to be here kind of deal. But this week is a very different tone. They're very directly talking about how important this game is, that a trophy will be handed out. It's a very different tone. So I don't know if Traylor just didn't expect to have a chance to lose last year, or maybe he was just, accepting the fact that they were an underdog. I don't know, but it seems like UTSA is really taking it seriously this year, whereas last year it was like, it's just another game. They never beat us before. So definitely a big difference I've noticed.
I mean, I feel the shirts and everything that the fans are wearing, not a rivalry. I felt it was warranted. 0-5. I mean, what can you say when you're Texas State? I think on the Texas State side of it, when they were looking at UTSA, obviously it was a rivalry to them. They want to get over that 0-5 mark. They want to beat the team down the street that's kind of stole their thunder in this G5 landscape, if you will, right here in Texas. So it was more one-sided until a win last year, and it was a big enough win that I feel like it was felt, and it was like, okay, the Bobcats are actually here. And now, granted, it was 0-5. There was a lot of close games. I think back to 2020, that overtime game, the missed PAT by Texas State. There's been a lot of close games.
2012 was a 7-point game.
2012, yeah, that was late though. They kind of, UTSA got a good lead. I was at that game as a fan in the UTSA student section with my brother, who's a UTSA grad. So I was sufficiently booed. It was a poor time for myself and a long drive back to San Marcos. But I think it's now it's accepted both sides as a rivalry, but it's still 1-5. Like that's if it was an NBA playoff series, it would have been over a couple games ago. So it's tough. The Bobcats really have a lot to prove still.
It's amazing what losing one time will do to UTSA and Jeff Traylor, because Jared, I do remember him before last year's game talking about, I love GJ so much, and if it was up to me, we wouldn't even play like this game. Yeah. It's the worst having to play him. And now he beats you one time. It's like, we're going to kick his ass this year.
The post game last year, like a lot of fans I talked to, they were really rubbed the wrong way in that post game press conference because, Jeff was like, yeah, we got our ass beat, whatever. And then like when they asked about the relationship with GJ, hit a big smile on his face. He's like, well, I'm sad we lost, but I'm so happy for GJ. And it was like, all right, man, read the room. Like that's not going to fly with the fan base. So like I said, very different tone this year.
Such a dichotomy of emotions for them. Both of them, you got to imagine. Like even that's why I noted it as the third one. Who knows? It could be the last. Maybe the winner gets a P4 job. Who knows what's gonna happen after this one. I'm surprised it made it to 3, really.
Mm-hmm. So going into the game, where is one area or maybe multiple areas that you think the program you cover has a distinct advantage in this game over the program they are facing? Either one of y'all can go first and start us off.
Well, I'd say it's actually an advantage for both sides against the other team's defense is their rush attack. I mean, we saw Henry for UTSA, what he did against Texas A&M. That was real impressive. Texas State had 392 rushing yards as a team the other night. So I think both are more of a run-heavy offense than we saw. At least, that's what it looked like from the A&M game from UTSA, that it seems like they're going to run the ball as well. So I think that's going to be a strength for Texas State with all the running backs they have. With Brad Jackson likes to run the ball with the big offensive line. They've been using 12 personnel, which is pretty new for GJ Kinney, trying to get some more blockers in there. I think both teams are going to run. I think it's going to be high scoring, but it's going to be high scoring on the ground on Saturday.
Yeah, and I would agree with Kev. I mean, I think one area where I do like UTSA's matchup, I mostly like through the frames of comparing to Eastern Michigan as well, is those Power 4 transfers that UTSA has at the interior linebacker position look really good against A&M. Kendrick Blackshire, the Texas/Alabama transfer, and then Shad Banks, the TCU transfer. I mean, they did not let much get past them in the run game, whereas Eastern Michigan was just getting mauled up front. So Not to say those guys are going to shut down the Texas State running attacks. I agree with Kev. I think it's going to be high scoring on the ground as well. But I think that's the one area where it'll be an adjustment for the Bobcats that, they're going to go against some linebackers that do have some athleticism, can take on some blocks and play downfield.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, I would say that's a weak spot for Texas State at linebacker right now. They're kind of cycling through some guys and figuring that out. So that's not going to bode well when you're trying to stop Henry. I know they had a backup running back. Can't remember his name right now. He had a good game as well. But so I know it's going to be potent from UTSA.
Both secondaries going into the year, I felt were question marks or spots that each defense needs to improve. How do y'all feel after week one of just what the pass defense is going to be like? Because, Brad can throw the ball around. Obviously, Owen can as well. I'm with you, Kev. I'm hammered. I've already hammered the over. And so I'd imagine it's going to be a pretty high scoring game. Yeah,
I've been concerned about the UTSA secondary for months now, and they did not show anything against A&M that assuaded any fears. Granted, tough matchup, right? I think Davin Morton played well. Jacavian Rogers showed some promise, but just overall, the experience and the talent level in that room, both safety and quarterback, is just not there. So they've got a lot of growing to do, and I think Texas State's system of an offense, and I say that in a complimentary way. I know some fans are like, "Oh, it's just a system," blah blah blah, but I completely disagree with that. Like the way that they have like the wide receivers like kind of take options based off how the defense is playing, I think it's going to be really challenging for sophomore cornerbacks and redshirt freshman quarterback to handle that. And when you have a safety room that's just been a constant shuffle, and one of the starters is probably out for this game, we don't really know what's going on with Jamarius Lewis, but I have a lot of concerns that they're just going to leave guys wide open, and I think that's going to be easy pickings for Brad Jackson.
Yeah, it's interesting the parallels, how similar the teams are, because I felt the same way about the DBs for Texas State. There was a lot of new guys, a lot of transfer ins that came in, and guys seemed a little out of place. It was an Eastern Michigan team that isn't going to be very good. You could kind of tell on Saturday, and from what they did last season, it's not going to be a very good team, and they were still getting beat by some of these guys. They were letting Noah Kim beat them pretty good. So there's a lot of adjusting to this system, especially this 5 DB system that they run. A lot of these new guys, it's not what they're used to. So they're going to have to get used to it. Some guys emerge, like Craig Royals, a JUCO guy. They put him in late because some other guys weren't playing well, and he had a really nice second half. So they're still kind of adjusting, moving pieces around there. But defense, I'm way more confident in Texas State's offense than I am their defense. I going in, I knew they lost a lot of players, but I also knew they replenished in the transfer portal, went and got some really good players, but it seems like they're still figuring out pieces. They have the depth, but it's like, which guys are they going to play in what situations and where? Still definitely figuring that out, because they allow 52-27 was the score for Texas State against Eastern Michigan, and 27 it's a lot more than that team should have had on them.
Is there one big question that you had about your programs going into week one that you felt like got answered, or you feel better about now going into week two?
Oh, the offensive line for UTSA looked incredible. Pound for pound, literally probably the best performance we've seen from that offensive line ever. And the crazy thing is they're breaking in 2 new starters that I don't know when the decision was made that those new transfers were going to start. Darrell Jones and Trevor Timmons, but both of those guys were fantastic. Ben Rios making his first start at center, only had one potentially bad snap. We're not sure what happened with the exchange there. Could have been on the quarterback, but they looked really good going up against 5-star talent like DJ Hicks, and they really held their own. Like there was really no point in the game where they got overwhelmed by a super talented Texas A&M front seven. So if they can play half that good throughout the rest of the season, I think this offense is going to be humming for sure.
For me, the question didn't get answered. The big question for me is, what does Brad Jackson's arm look like? How vertical can it really get? Because he had a really nice game. He had 4 touchdown passes. All of them were either intermediary or really short, like 3 yards to 16 yards. 4 of them, all to the same player. He only completed passes to 2 different receivers, Chris Don and Bo Sparks. We didn't see much verticality from them like we've seen in this vert choice offense. It's right there in the name, as you were talking about earlier, Jared, where the receivers, they even have choices to make in their route running. It's not just the quarterback making decisions. We didn't see a lot of that vert choice, if you will, on Saturday against Eastern Michigan. From my eye, it looked more like a run heavy West Coast style offense where there was a lot of running, obviously, not unlike a West Coast offense, more running than a West Coast, but the passing, was a lot of slants, a lot of short passes, a lot of running backs out of the backfield. So, and again, we saw this last year with Texas State, where they kind of held back against Lamar and then unleashed some new stuff against UTSA. I wonder if that's still in their mind, if that's something they're doing again, or if they were limiting a freshman quarterback, whether it was because it's his first start or if they're not exactly sure if he can make those throws. Unclear of the case, what's going on there. That was my biggest question since the spring, really, when they didn't go get a big splashy transfer quarterback to come in. Kind of knew it would be Brad Jackson. So since then, I've been like, all right, what's the vertical pass look like? Because they've locked it down. We weren't allowed to see any practice in spring. We were allowed to go to 4 practices in fall camp, and only the first 20 minutes when they warmed up. That was it. So that's all we've seen since last season. So they've been keeping it real tight to the vest. So I'm going to be interested to see what they unleash against UTSA on Saturday.
When I left Texas State in the spring and talked to Kenny and looked at that roster, and like UCAF noticed that they didn't go and get somebody that was going to start at quarterback and this was going to be Brad Jackson's team, it was like, this is going to look a lot like Gus Malzahn. And I think people forget what tree Kenny really comes from, and it's that Gus tree, and it just feels like personnel-wise, this is up his alley in a way that I don't think people give Kenny credit for running an offense that is going to look like the one that it looks like on Saturday.
Yeah, Mike, to your point, I mean, as someone who follows Texas State quite closely, from the outside, thanks to Kev's incredible coverage, I was expecting a lot more options from Brad Jackson. I thought they're going to do a lot of zone read, a lot of read option, a lot of RPO, and I didn't see a lot of it. And I'm sure that's in the cards because, like you said, that's his background.
Wait till 2:30 on Saturday. You'll start. You're probably going to see a little bit more of that. I think what's been fun about this game to project is they are mirror images of each other. I think we both feel good about their young quarterbacks. They have weapons around them. The running game is good. The offensive lines are huge. I mean, Texas State's got one of the biggest offensive lines in the country, the biggest offensive line in the country. We have questions about the defense and the depth on that side of the ball and the secondary. So if these two teams are so similar and the head coaches know each other so well and the fan bases are so into this, what is this game going to come down to?
Who scores last?
Best type of games.
Yeah. Like 2020. I really think it's going to have a lot of similarities to that one. Who's going to miss a PAT? Who's going to blink first offensively? Because, I mean, from what I saw from Texas State's defense, they have a lot of work to do, and I don't think that they're going to resolve it by game 2. And they already know Jeff Traylor's going to bring a good game plan. And I mean, it seems like from Jared, he's pretty confident in the same situation for UTSA's defense. So that's where I'm at. I think it's going to be the who messes up first, who throws an interception, who has mistakes.
Yeah, an anticipated shootout like this always come down to the quarterback, right? Owen was really bad against Texas State last year. And, I was talking with some friends. If UTSA loses this game, Owen can be one of the best quarterbacks in UTSA history, but still not have much of a legacy because he couldn't beat Texas State, which is kind of crazy to say because UTSA has dominated the series for so long, but it's a real risk. On the flip side, Brad Jackson's making his first real road start, and it's going to be a super raucous atmosphere. You guys know how loud the dome is going to get. I don't know if UTSA can get pressure on him or not, to be honest, from what we've seen and, what that talent level is at, for this year's iteration of the roster. But the Bullets will be flying for sure. And he did not face a lot of adversity against a pretty bad EMU team. So I think that's going to be the key difference. It's which quarterback's going to handle the pressure better. And we'll see. It's going to be very interesting.
More parallels. I mean, going last year when Owen McCowan got in there, his second start, a big crowd on the road. So, I mean, we've seen it not go well for a young quarterback. So that's a concern for myself. I imagine a lot of the Texas State contingency feels the same way.
Well, Jared, you're talking about pressure there, and I want to ask a question about pressure too, because on our podcast, I like to pose the question, is it a must win or can't lose game? And I know this is a must win for both UTSA and Texas State, but which team is it more of a can't lose for? Who's got more pressure on them going into this game?
That's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe UTSA because they lost the last one.
Yeah, I was going to say
agree.
that too.
I would agree with that.
Last year, I would have told you Texas State, and probably the last 4 times I would have said Texas State. But no, I think it's flipped, and it's a nice thing about the pendulum swinging back a little bit is it does make it more of a tantalizing rivalry.
UTSA is at home. There's the what is UTSA after Frank Harris questions. Texas State's going to the Pac-12. Like G.J. Kinney, like has he overtaken his like his mentor if they win 2 in a row? Like this feels like a Jeff Traylor UTSA prove that you're more than Frank Harris game, honestly, to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Frank Harris, 2023. That guy went out of the game 3 times and came back in. I think it was just twice. He came in for a 3rd time, but
he was Gumby.
Unbelievable. He's not going to be there, right?
He'll probably be in the stands.
He might get that shoulder loose. Might get that arm loose.
Yeah, he's gonna put in a waiver to the NCAA, and
Hey, the way things are going these days, don't count it out.
Yeah, I saw TJ Finley's now at like what is 6 college, something like that.
Yeah.
Georgia State. Great guy. Father. He's got twins himself.
I don't consider myself much of a hater. Maybe y'all would disagree with that. Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't have a ton of self-awareness.
No.
But I hate the 25-year-old quarterback stuff. Like there needs to be like an age like cap on how old you can be to play college football. Like you're an adult, go get a job. You have a mortgage. Like what are we doing?
A question I've had is like, is it still cool to be a college quarterback or an SEC quarterback for 25? Is it still cool to say you are?
I think if you're getting paid $500,000, it's probably pretty cool.
You know what? Yeah. And if you're getting paid $500,000, who cares what guys with mics are saying?
That's the answer. How much money you're making? You can be the coolest guy on campus. Then it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing at a guy, I'm gonna throw a stray at some poor school that doesn't deserve it, but Texas Lutheran or something, and you're a 25-year-old quarterback, definitely not as cool because you're not putting any money in your pocket. But the SEC level. I mean, hell, even these guys at the G6 level are getting some decent rep share now. I mean, 6 figures, I think, for most schools for the quarterback position. So
last year I had tweeted about Dylan Gabriel needing to get a job, and Will Stein texted me and was like, he has a job, a very high paying, good job. And it's like, that's a fair point.
Right.
So UTSA, the line is down to 4.5, over unders at 66.5. This is my specialty of math. I can't do math other than expected scores. It's 35-31. UTSA. We've all agreed we're going over on that. What is y'all's predictions on how this game plays out and who wins it?
I'm going 52-49 Texas State. I think that was the score of 2020. I'm just gonna reverse it in favor overtime. Give me overtime as well in the Alamo Dome.
Nice. I'm gonna actually go pretty close to like the expected point total. I think Texas State will cover, but I'm gonna take UTSA to win just with home field advantage. Retro freshman quarterback starting first game in a rivalry is always really tough to ask. So I don't know, UTSA 34, Texas State 32 or something like that. I guess that'd be an under. So I guess if go to it's
5.5. And I'd imagine that over under just gets larger and larger. Like if you are betting, if you're a betting person, for those listening out there that do enjoy gambling, bet the line as soon as possible. You probably should have already bet it because it's going to creep towards 70 by the time kickoff happens.
Yeah, once all the like influencer accounts and all the Barstool accounts and all that get onto it and start pumping it, like the lines go crazy. They juice that stuff.
Before we get out of here, can y'all say something you respect the most about the other program?
Ooh, yeah.
First they're sour, then they're sweet. That's what they say.
I've got a good one. If you want me to go first.
Sure.
The way I can remember being a student at Texas State, 2010, 2011, and UTSA is coming along. They're going to start a football program, and there was a ton of hubris around, especially around San Marcos. Like, oh yeah, okay, all right, that's not going to go well for them. How can you just start a program out of thin air? Because that is incredibly hard to do what they've done at UTSA to build it up to what it is now. To even the way I know there's a lot of jokes about the UT San Antonio stuff, but to embrace San Antonio and to understand that is a big part of their identity, everything that they've done every step of the way. I mean, you can look at Texas State and see how they've cleaned up their act now, but a lot of them around here would be lying, the admins and everything, that they weren't looking at UTSA and being like, man, we really got to get it together here. Look at what they're doing right there. Look at how much it's working. Look how great it is for their university. I mean, look at what's going on now with the medical school and everything. So it is pretty great. They're going to need the medical school after the beat down the box.
Yes,
that's too good. That's
good.
All right, my turn. I'll say though, I have a ton of respect for the true sickos, the true believers that have stuck with a program that we saw some really, really dark years. And it was kind of befuddling how Texas State was so bad, despite having so many like natural advantages and so many resources at their disposal. And
Larry
I think it
Tice.
just goes to show, right, the right leadership in
name.
place at almost any program can make successful. Like it's almost like a cliche now when they talk about alignment between the administration and the coaches and all that stuff. But if you look at the change that's happened in San Marcos, it's just clear that like it doesn't take a massive NIL payroll. It doesn't take a crazy fancy facility. If you have a lot of people that care and are pulling in the right direction, they can pull a program up from some pretty dark places, right? And we've seen it on the UTSA side too. I mean, like you go back and think of some of those Coker team stories, like they were like getting plastic pools from Walmart and filling them up with ice for their ice baths because they didn't have any treatment facilities, right? So for me, it's just really cool to see both of these programs invest. I think it's, like I was saying, it's good for the state. I think to have as many high school players have a good avenue to play at a solid program in state is awesome. So just give a lot of credit to the administration at Texas State that's been able to turn that thing around and keep them trending in a positive direction.
And then to that point, this is the last thing from me. Regional rivalries have gone away in a lot of cases, especially like the cross-conference regional rivalries. How important is it to these two universities and these fan bases to like have this game and to have this rivalry and for both sides to be on the upward trajectory? Like, what is that for college football and what is it for these universities?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, there's a lot of fans out there. Like, this is the only game they're really going to be super invested in, just because they know so many people at the other schools. They party with them, they work with them, they grew up down the street from them, and all of that. So it's just really important to have that initial, kind of touchstone. And some of those fans are going to take it further. They're going to become the diehards like us, and they get really invested. But I think it's just great to show that like you don't have to be a Longhorn, you don't have to be an Aggie to get a great college experience, to have that big time football experience in your life throughout your collegiate experience. And I think specifically for the interconference thing, it's even more important this year because UTSA has had that leg up when it comes to the media distribution, the bowl tie-ins and all that stuff, and that's up in the air now. Like we're gonna have to see how the Pac-12 shakes out in this new look, but the first step is making sure that you can beat them on the field again and continue to have something you can hold over them. Now that they're going to be a more equal footing as far as resources go.
Well, guys, we're looking forward to the game on Saturday. If it's anything like what this debate was, then we're all in for a real treat, I think. For senior writer Mike Craven, thank you all so much for coming on and listening to this Texas State UTSA preview. Check out Jared Kalmus at the Alamo Audible podcast and Kef Chardello at the Win Now or Get Bent podcast. You guys got any plugs you want to get out there for the people?
You nailed it. The podcast, Win Now or Get Bent. Check us out. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. All that.
I just want to say thank you to Kef for not calling me a homer and to let me be an unbiased mediator of this conversation.
I kind of wanted it to naturally get to this because you're not, and I wanted to bring this up. And I saw a lot of the Texas State fans getting after you. It was funny because it was when I was like, yeah, I'm gonna hop on Dave Campbell's with Mike. And somebody was like, oh man, they were really going after him the other day. And I saw what they did. And I know it was with the over under 7.5s. And they love to jump on you a lot. I can say Mike Craven, he's a proud UTSA Roadrunner, but he's even a prouder journalist. So he's not gonna let it wash him like that. You see, if you can see, I have a Texas State helmet right here. If anything, I have the more biased takes than this guy. So,
Kef, what was your prediction for the season? What was your record prediction for the season?
9-3 is what I have him at. 9-3 is what I got. It's an optimistic prediction. I believe in this offense and the things that they have going on. So, but I also believe like the floor is like 6-6. So when you say under 7-5, I feel like that's a good measure. Or 7.5, I think is what.
Yes. I predicted 7. I have 7-5. But after week 1 and seeing Brad Jackson, maybe, I've always said the loser of the week 2 game between UTSA and Texas State, the loser goes 7-5, the winner goes 8-4. Like, I don't think there's much separating these two programs this year. I've just leaned UTSA because they're 29-3 at home, and I know who their quarterback was, and we make the magazine in May.
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned in the magazine, it's insane that GJ Kinney could win 7 games at Texas State, and that's a letdown. I mean, let's have a little perspective here. Same goes for Traylor at UTSA. An 8-win season is awesome with where this program has been, the past decade, right? Like, come on, guys.
Yeah. And I graduated from UTSA in 2008. Like I was there when we added women's soccer, and we were all mad because we had no idea why we were adding women's soccer. It ended up being so Title IX, we could get football and stuff like that. But this idea, like Jared will tell you, UTSA fans think I'm a hater. Like they think that I don't care about UTSA at all. And and so maybe you're doing it right when UTSA thinks you're a hater and Texas State thinks you're a hater.
I think you're down.
I just want somebody to like me.
I
just want a fan base to like me. But maybe we'll find one someday.
There's a fan of journalists that are really into Mike Craven. So
UTEP minors. I got UTEP. UTEP.
Yeah. UTEP. And those journalism fans are rambunctious.
Oh, yeah, you know it.
Yeah.
It's like
and
Rob
shrinking.
Lowe's NFL hat. It's like me with like a big J journalism hat. All right, boys. Thank y'all so much.
Thanks for having me.